Welcome to Talk Across America. I'm Doug Miles, and we're here in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. Joining us now, great to welcome a man who's written a book, put together a book about something we deal with every day. It's part of our lives, called Weather, an illustrated history from cloud atlases to climate change. We're joined today by Andrew Revkin. He's been a senior reporter on climate and related issues at ProPublica, also has written for the New York Times, and he joined us by telephone today. Andrew, good to talk with you. How are you?
I'm good, and I recently moved to National Geographic Society, so New Frontier.
Oh, great. Okay,
cool.
Yeah, great. I didn't see that in the notes, so congratulations on that. But as I said, we deal with weather every day, and this has been one of the weirdest springs I remember. Even here down here in Florida, we had some weird weather, but I would guess the Midwest and Northeast, I've never seen as much snow. You know, when you look at the baseball season, I think they've had more rainouts and snowouts than history, so it's been a weird spring, hasn't it?
Indeed, yeah. These are polar outbreaks. I live in the Hudson River Valley near West Point, the military academy, and the river was frozen over in ways that are really rare. The icebreakers on the Hudson River is not a normal thing, and it's been kind of amazing. What happens is Arctic air can spill out of the Arctic sometimes, and but as a journalist covering this stuff, I try to pull back and make sure I'm keeping track of the big picture. And what's happened is, in situations like this, the cold air spills our way, but then sort of warm air has pushed up into the Arctic on the other side. So that's led to quite a bit of the slow freeze-up of the Arctic this winter, and the probably be more and more open water there this summer, like has been the case increasingly with the warming climate. So it's all connected.
I grew up in Long Island, and I don't remember a weird spring. I remember we've had some snowstorms in late March, early April, but just looking at what happened this year, that's very unusual for New York.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Now, when you look at weather like this, and your book kind of goes into kind of the history of weather, forecasting it and all that, is something that happened this spring like part of a huge, long-term cycle that's happened before, or are other things going on?
Well, it's sort of an and thing. Usually, the Earth system is really complicated. The oceans have all these variable currents, and El Nino is just one of them. But there's many other aspects of the oceans that can vary year to year, even decade to decade. And science has gotten better and better at sifting out what around us is truly new versus something that could just be a rare thing that's occurring. And climate change, the global warming from greenhouse gases, is sort of a background push. It's nudging everything in the warmer direction, but that ends up with complicated, consequences. You nudge a complicated system, and things always happen in ways that are hard to predict. And what I've found, and I've been writing about climate change for now, this is my 30th year writing about the greenhouse effect and global warming and all that stuff, and it's gotten less surprising to me that there's a lot of rancor and polarization around it, because it kind of, there's enough complexity that if you feel you're, for whatever reason, ideologically or otherwise, you're comfortable with the status quo, you find comfort in that data. And there's tons of data that give you concern going forward. But there, too, so much of what we do or don't do about global warming relates to how much you care about the future. It's really not really about what's out the window in a particular season or month. It's about a future where sea levels are rising essentially for centuries to come, where there's no new normal sea level. That's a very different thing than thinking about sort of winter-to-winter variability. And they're both important. In other words, reducing the vulnerability to climate hazards now is something that no one need argue about. If we're subsidizing building in areas that are prone to flooding, that's a problem. And then, thinking about future energy systems, how we perceive the need for there is really a separate kind of a question.
Yeah, I always wondered. In the book, you talk about it. Some of these, weather things that happened, thousands of years ago, even millions of years ago, that were catastrophic, and there were no, combustible engines or oil or anything spewing anything in the atmosphere then. Why did those things happen then? I'm not saying we shouldn't have a clean atmosphere, but why did those things happen then as opposed to, the last 100 years? Not too bad, but now we're getting, ramifications from having, exhaust in the air and all that. But why did that happen then?
Oh, because the system is very variable. It is. I've written about there are several chunks in the book. 1862. People think about extreme rainfall today. 1862, California, that Central Valley, Sacramento South, was essentially turned into a giant inland freshwater sea because these atmospheric rivers, the Pineapple Express phenomenon, there was one that just was off the charts. It did that for 40 days in a row, and it would cause $1 trillion of damage now. And as you say, that's just in the system. It's not something that was a function of greenhouse gas pollution or the like. So it's important to recognize that bad things can happen all the time in our system. It's implicit, and that's why I don't overplay. I've never overplayed the idea that anything that's rare or weird out the window is because of global warming. It's just not demonstrable. And that doesn't mean you relax about it either, because some of these heat waves, for sure, in a warming climate will be worse and longer, and that's one of the most robust realities. But that doesn't mean that the heat wave of the 1930s in America wasn't important as well.
Yeah, in the 30s you had that the crazy Dust Bowl thing, right? Well,
that's
plain
a chapter
states.
in the book.
I mean, that was a scary thing back then. That was just the wind kind of bringing up all the dirt, right, and just blowing it to other states.
Yeah, although that did have a human component too. It was the sod busters, literally. By breaking up the prairie, we were creating a lot more of the possibility of those great dust storms than was happening naturally. So it's kind of a sort of a different kind of human-generated phenomenon.
I always thought, when you really think of it, I mean, the Earth, you think it's this huge, solid object for the most part. It really is like an egg when you look at it. How many moving parts to it, and how many cracks are in the surface underneath. It's amazing that it stays together in one piece, doesn't it? And then that affects the weather. Yeah,
it's been an incredibly resilient system. When you think about the things that have happened, the early chapters in the book go through some of these, truly amazing moments when the atmosphere was stripped away by an early collision. They had to rebuild over millions of years when, of course, the impact that extinguished the dinosaurs and led to the rise of mammals 60 million years ago. That's one we can be thankful for, but we wouldn't want it to happen now. And onward in time, and then as science emerged in the 1600s and onwards, people started to get a little more understanding of how this all works. But there have been ideas that are pretty basic that were resisted for just as you mentioned, the sort of egg, the cracked egg, the idea that the continents can move around over time. Continental drift was attacked as a weird idea for decades before it finally was accepted that, South America and they were all attached once. So it does seem that we resist new ideas sometimes really long time before they catch hold.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line is, certain things we can do, obviously, clean up the atmosphere as best we can, but a lot of things we just have no control over. I mean, you can't prevent hurricanes, right? We had our share of those down here in Florida. You can't prevent blizzards, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you just have to live
one
with
of the chapters in the book, 2006, after Katrina, that was when global warming and hurricanes became a big hot-button issue, even among scientists. There were scientists who... It's still hard to figure out how hurricanes and climate interact. But anyway, scientists who were debating this question about whether global warming was having a role issued a common letter, 2006, and this is I put in the book because I think it's a really important message, that these 10 scientists were fighting about that question, but they all said, the thing that's really putting us in danger is where and how people are building. That,
right.
If we're subsidizing construction in flood zones, or what is it we can do with policies that can make it have more resilient building practices, and whether it's Florida or in the tornado zones of the Midwest, those are things that need not be a political debate. That make total sense, and that often we don't do. So, and same thing in the wildfire zones in the West. The main factor driving the losses in those recent fires in California had nothing to do with climate. The main factor is that over the last 40 years, people have built enormously in these zones that are just going to burn. Yeah. So that's something that's within our control.
Well, the name of the book, and it's a fascinating book to just kind of read some of the history of weather and weather forecasting and weather events. It's called Weather: An Illustrated History from Cloud Atlases to Climate Change, and we've been talking with Andrew Revkin today. Andrew, do you have a website you can give out to people and get more information about the book?
The simplest thing to do, for sure, is just Google for the word weather and my name, Revkin. Weather and Revkin. And they find
R-E-V-K-I-N,
the book all kinds of places.
Great.
R-E-V-K-I-N.
Pleasure talking to you, Andrew. You're in my former neck of the woods up in New York, so hopefully we can talk again down the road, but thanks for being with us today.
Well, I love your neck of the woods. I've been down there and written about many things in Florida over the years.
So we get to share good weather, occasionally some bad, but not too bad overall.
Yep.
Thanks for talking to us. Bye now.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us today on Talk Across America. Please visit our website at dougmilesmedia.com for more great interviews and content. And if you're interested in any of the books we talk about on the program, please click the Amazon link on our website. It helps support the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again real soon here from beautiful Sarasota, Florida.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.